Hello and welcome to Science Unscripted. Conor here.
And Gabe?
Going to start off with an email about that we received in connection with a topic we talked about last week: donating.
How to give well.
How to give money away well, and what are the biases we human beings have when we give money away, and who has those biases? Because some people apparently give to charity equally to everyone, and others are more specific about it. Got an email. The person who wrote it requested that we leave the name out, so we're doing that.
Because they like to give anonymously.
Yeah, that fits. Yeah. So, interesting interview with your guest, Gabe and Conor. There are so many valuable causes out there, right? You could donate everything every day that you make. Yeah. And the ask so far exceeds the ability to respond that at home, we've found it necessary to set some criteria and then pretty much stick to them. And I'm going to just jump ahead in the email to the practical criteria, 4 bullet points. Do we have a personal connection to or interaction with the recipient? Mm-hmm. Do we believe we understand how the money is going to be used? Is this something in our own community? If it isn't, is someone more local to the objective better positioned to help? And is it within our predetermined budget? That was somebody who's keeping it local because that allows them to see what happens to it.
Yeah, and that rings true with what we heard from Isabel Thielmann, Dr. Isabel Thielmann down in Freiburg, that first of all, you have to like the person and also feel connected to them.
And the only thing I will add here, kind of for the person who wrote this, is that there's a little line at the end: we don't respond to door-to-door or spur-of-the-moment requests. That connects to one of the things I was at the very least thinking about when we had that interview last week with Isabel, which is that in that same week, my wife had been walking through, I think, the streets of Bonn, Germany. Mm-hmm. And you know those pavilions that are set up, and a lot of us kind of avoid them because there are a couple people standing inside, and you know they're going to walk right at you and say, please donate to our cause, donate to our charity.
Yeah, the German version of the Salvation Army, pretty much.
Yeah, and lots of different causes, and they may be good, but I usually do avoid them because it's hard to say no, and I don't have enough information. She came back and said, by the way, I signed up for one. I said, oh, really? Yeah. Which one? And I think it was in something environmental, €9 a month, and we can stop at any time. And then I was trying to get more information about what the cause was, and she didn't really have it. And then it turned out that the guy who approached her was like I think a nice-looking young man. Yeah. And that's why we're now currently at a rate of €9 a month donating to this cause.
Has no idea. You have no idea what.
I don't know where it's. Yeah, and she saw that at my face, and she said, "Well, we can stop at any time, any month." And I was like, "Okay, well, I think Wait
a minute. How did she?
We may do that.
How did she give you this information that she liked his baby face, or what did she say?
No, it's you know your partner really well, and I think she referenced what a nice guy he was a couple different times. I may be reading too much into it. It's just. That's a case of her breaking the rule in this email.
Are you jealous?
I find it funny. I mean, it's what, €9? I guess it'll be €18 next month, and I can cancel or look into it. I need to look into it. But that's what this email author is saying, is that's not how he or she would do it.
Got it.
And I'm still, kind of dealing with that.
We also got an email from Ray, and this is, I believe, the first time that Ray has ever written to us. So I'm going to read his whole email, and this is with regard to the study that you talked about on authority last week.
Yeah.
Which I believe said that if you're on a sports team, you have more respect for authority than if you're not on that sports team.
Correct.
Right?
There's an association between children between the ages of 6 and 10 who've played on an organized sports team, and a survey that they fill out at roughly age 12 saying, yes, I respect authority. And to be very specific, I think it was children from Montreal in Canada. So that's what the study says.
Ray writes, my wife and I raised 4 kids during the 70s, 80s, and 90s. All 4 are intelligent, successful adults who have blessed us with 8 grandchildren and even 1 great-grandson.
Wow.
They are respectful of authority, including how they push back against authority when they're so inclined. All 4 were enrolled in minor hockey programs throughout their entire public school years. While I agree with the conclusion reached in the study you referenced, namely that children enrolled in organized sports are more likely to respect authority as adults, I respectfully suggest that the reason is more nuanced than just that. And that reason is that organized sports have authority figures who exist to ensure that one team or the other, or one individual player or another, does not bully their opponents without attracting punitive consequences. I'm referring, of course, to referees, umpires, or whatever the neutral authorities are called. I believe that if adults who played organized sports as kids are respectful of authority when they grow up, it's because they played under rules of games that were administered fairly by authority figures who believed in those rules. Thank you, Ray.
I'm going to jump to a study that I thought was fascinating and useful. This is, I'll go ahead and just give the conclusion, the idea that if you decide that you want to have a more favorable opinion of someone or like them more than you do now, all you have to do is imagine positive scenarios with them that have never ever happened, never will happen.
And is this a person you already dislike?
This is a person that is in your neutral category.
Neutral, okay.
Yeah, and let me just jump into the study. What they did here is they took 50 people who had no psychiatric issues whatsoever, and they said, please write down 30 names. 30 names of people that you actually know. Write them all down. And then you have to categorize them as people I like, people I feel neutral about, and people I dislike.
Okay.
Right? So let's just say it's 10, 10, 10. It probably wasn't, but to divide it up equally. Then they put these people into an fMRI machine, so they're scanning their brains live while they're in there.
Yeah.
And what they did is they took a look at the neutral names. So they're in there and they're flashing the neutral names for 8 seconds, and they asked them, please, we want you to imagine a situation with this person that is positive.
Yeah.
And I went deep into the study and the data on these back pages to find exactly which scenarios they flashed in front. So positive experiences that you could imagine with somebody who's on your neutral list right now. Go to the movies with them. Put your feet in a river to cool off. And imagine that person, totally neutral person, coming over and helping you put furniture together.
Okay, so for an example, I'm in this fMRI, and a woman I know, Ashley. I'm completely neutral with regard to Ashley. I'm supposed to then imagine myself in a river with her and my feet are in the water?
Yeah. I mean, if it's a nice experience.
and then I'm going to the movies. I'm going to go watch You've Got Mail with
that'd be pretty romantic. I don't know if they weren't that specific. Interestingly, there are also negative scenarios that you could imagine with this neutral person.
Yeah.
For example, one of them was they puke on your sofa. Which is a very negative experience.
Okay, so Ashley comes over and pukes on
vomits,
myself. All right.
Vomits onto your couch.
Yep.
Or Ashley steps intentionally on beetles.
On beetles?
On beetles.
Those big black ones.
Yeah. I was really surprised by the specificity of that insect. Or finally, and this will give away where the study was done, laughs at your English. The study was done
France.
in Leipzig, Germany, at the Max Planck Institute for Human Cognitive and Brain Science. To be clear here, the participants received €9 an hour for that behavioral part, and then $10 per hour when they were in the machine. This part's going to resonate with you.
Okay.
Speaking of magnetic resonance, because one participant was excluded from the experiment because guess what happened to them inside the machine, Gabe?
It peed his pants?
What? You said you were he fell asleep. He fell asleep.
Oh.
You almost fell asleep when we put you in an fMRI up in the Netherlands.
I had a great time up in Nijmegen, Netherlands. Yeah, you're right. I did fall asleep.
Yeah, because it's really peaceful and you've got that mask pressing on your face.
Yeah.
So, 50 people, I think 49 made it through the whole experiment. Interestingly, because they were looking at the brain, they could see the two parts of the brain connecting that matter. One is the ventral striatum, and this is connected to something called reward prediction error.
Oh, yeah.
Complicated name. What it means is if I do something that I don't usually do, like you tell me, Conor, let's go on a hike. And it's winter, it's wet, it's muddy. And I'm like, that's not going to be fun. And then it's gorgeous. This dopamine hit kind of reestablishes or trains my brain to know that is a positive experience. Yeah. You didn't expect it. Yeah. The second part, the dorsomedial prefrontal cortex, is where you have memories of people. And they kind of saw these two areas connecting. An unexpectedly positive experience now connected to an individual. And again, what's really fascinating is it wasn't real. This is completely imagined, and that's what the authors...
Yeah, but if those pathways are lit up, then that's going to connect them.
Exactly.
Because that's how neurons communicate with each other. Yeah,
You've hacked your own brain. And the authors are saying, and again, it was the Max Planck Institute in Leipzig and also the UC Boulder, University of Colorado in Boulder in the United States. What they're saying is therapeutic options here. So if there's somebody who is really seeking to repair a damaged relationship with somebody, and they just can't quite get past whatever happened in the past, this would be one cognitive behavioral approach.
Do not envision or imagine that person coming over and puking on your couch. Instead, imagine them coming over, and then you guys go for a walk and put your feet into a river.
Or you go to a shady beer garden, as the German researchers here imagined. Not everyone has access to a beer garden, but Germans would. But the puking on the sofa, last thing I'll say here, it's a funny example, and yet there's a danger in there because people who tend to have anxiety and depression, even if they want to reestablish that better relationship, tend to lock onto the negative. So if this can happen positively,
or fear of that happening again,
if you have imagined negative scenarios of somebody, you're driving down the likability and harming the ability to repair that relationship if you want to. And some people have less control over those thoughts than others. So be aware of that. Anyone who wants to try this on themselves.
Wow.
But this is in Nature Communications. It's called Learning from Imagined Experiences via an Endogenous Prediction Error.
Another psychological study that we're going to look at here out of Florida State University and Montpellier University in France looked at the idea of, or the question is, does your life have purpose? Essentially, and the people that they studied here, I think, is important because that connection has been looked at in adults. If you have a sense that your life has a purpose, you have direction in life, it is correlated with better mental health or less depression, less anxiety. What they were looking at here, these researchers, were teenagers and what effect that has as you transition into adulthood.
It's an interesting question because do teenagers have a life purpose?
Well, that's what they wanted to figure out, and they wanted to see whether that has an effect on their mental health through the transition into adulthood. So they were talking to 17 to 19-year-olds, 2,800 of them after they were screened for whether they had depression to begin with, because then they didn't qualify for this study. So these were people who are mentally fit or do not have depression or anxiety. And they looked at them initially between the ages of 17 to 19 and then followed them every 2 years until they turned 28. Mm-hmm. And the effect was huge for these researchers at FSU and Montpellier for every standard deviation of reported purpose. So they were asking every 2 years, does your life have a sense of purpose? And over the past month, how many times did you feel over the past month that your life had purpose? So the more they said their life had purpose, it was 35% less likely that they would get depression over the next 10 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So the protection that you get from having that purpose was way more significant than the researchers envisioned.
So leading to the next logical question, how do you get a life purpose as a 17 to 19-year-old?
I wouldn't even try and answer that right now. But we've had, over the last few weeks, we've had a 20-year-old kid named Ronnie here doing an apprenticeship for, I believe it's called Media and Marketing. Mm-hmm. And when he asked me a couple of days ago, what are you guys going to be talking about this week? I said, looking into some psychological research about purpose in life and the effect that that's going to have on possibly on depression. And he's like, oh, man. Purpose in life. The people around me don't have that. They feel lost. He straight up said that, forlorn, lost. And I was like, why? Is it because, I don't know, the precarious state of the world, looking to the future, not being able to get a job? And he said, no, none of that. None of that grandiose stuff. It's because of this. And then he pulls out his phone, and he was saying that people are getting lost in their phones. He said that it's led to people, doing drugs.
In his friend group.
Yeah.
We've talked on the show about the difference between healthy and unhealthy smartphone usage. Yeah. And one of the major themes is that some of the parts of your brain that light up when you have actual social interactions that have all sorts of healthy benefits are being lit up sometimes in different ways via your phone, and it can lead to isolation. I don't know if that's what he's referencing.
When it's so easy to get the dopamine hit from a smartphone, and it's ubiquitous, it's always there. You can always go and get that dopamine hit. When it comes back down, the baseline goes down, and then you're in this hole. The whole system is based on trying to get you back to that level of dopamine that you were at before. And how do you do it? With going to that same source. But the problem is that you're never going to get it back to the baseline, because it's harder and harder to get to that level because of the threshold you build based on addiction. And it's a little bit like the neurochemical substances of alcohol or opioid or drugs. It's just, it's way more ubiquitous and it's always there. And I think that's what Ronnie was getting at when he was trying to tell me that all his friends are lost and they don't have a sense of purpose, is that you have to put in a lot of work to get that sense of purpose, a long-term goal. And that's what he was saying in his group of friends was lacking.
Was absent. Yeah, which again gets back to the biggest question: how do you develop that sense of purpose? We've talked on this show. The closest we've come to it, meaning. Is your life meaningful?
Yeah.
And a lot of that, if I remember it correctly, was sort of in retrospect, but also in the future tense. Does having children give your life meaning? Does doing X, Y, or Z or helping other people, does that give you meaning in life? And I would guess that's very closely connected to purpose, but
yeah, working towards a long-term goal.
I would be interested to know if somewhere in that paper or in the data back pages of that paper, whether the people who were 17 and 19 and saying that they had a purpose in life, what was it? Because I don't remember what mine was between the ages of 17 and 19.
What is yours for you listening to this right now? What is your sense of purpose and how did you get it? And if you want to check that paper out, it's Purpose in Life in Late Adolescence and Incident Depression Over 10 Years in the Journal of Psychiatric Research.
And the other final question, do you believe in the idea of imagining a better relationship with the person in these sometimes bizarre scenarios with your feet in a river with that person?
Have you ever put your feet into a river with anybody else? I haven't. That's missing in my life.
SU@dw.com.
It is widely known, and especially for the people who have gone through pregnancy and had offspring, that the foods that the mother eats during pregnancy will have an effect on the unborn child. The amniotic fluid, also in the breast milk.
Exactly, and not just foods, but drinks. Obviously, this is why alcohol is forbidden during pregnancy, and then very, 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 very minimal, if at all, immediately afterwards. That's known, and it can lead to some worse outcomes for kids if you're not eating healthily. Like all of that is a known. We know that. But what if the diet isn't changed? It's a regular diet, but the smells associated with the foods are changed? That is the very, very interesting question that a researcher named Sophie Steculorum posed in her recently published study on pregnant mice and the effect that aroma can have on the newborn babies.
Science Unscripted.
So I'm Sophie Steculorum, and I'm leading a research group at the Max Planck Institute for Metabolism Research. And my group just published a story on pregnant mice and the importance of diet.
Okay, so you got a pregnant mouse who is smelling bacon, something savory, smells like bacon all day long, but eating the exact same calories. And then the child is born and goes through life and is obese, more so than it would have. Or?
Exactly. So what is important is that the mum are actually eating these diets. So, right, they eat the diets that contain the odors of bacon. And it's really well known that the odors of a food can actually be transferred to the milk and the amniotic fluid. And it's something we never think about, but it actually means that our food sensory experiences actually already started in the womb of our mothers, right? We didn't only start to smell food when we were born, but already in the womb.
Okay, so they're biologically primed now to want that. Whether in the womb or during lactation, they've been exposed to all this bacon, and that what defaults us to want something like bacon as we grow up?
Exactly. So I'm not sure we can say whether they want it. So maybe we can actually ask in general, like, why would this exist, right? Why in nature the odors from a diet will actually be transferred to the milk or the amniotic fluid, right? And no one knows exactly, but the main hypothesis is that this acts as a teaching signal. Because when a mammal is born, the animal actually have to know how to feed themselves, right? How to find the breast, how to find the nipple, when they are weaned, how to find food in the wild. And how do we think this happens is that when an animal is exposed to some odorants in the womb, they get to know these odorants, right? So when they are born, for example, to find the nipple, usually the first milk, the colostrum, smells the same at the amniotic fluid. So when they are born, even without seeing, they can use smell to find, for example, the nipple. Same at weaning, when an animal is in the wild and have to make food decision, most of the food can kill you in the wild, right? And how does an animal can make safe food decision? Probably by smelling food and thinking, I know these odors, my mom might have eaten it, I can also eat it myself.
And the offspring, how did you track them? Were they overeating wildly compared to the controlled mice, or what did you see there?
So something important is that actually those animals do not develop obesity if they are on a healthy diet. They only develop a more pronounced obesity when they are eating like an obesogenic high-fat diet. So in our study, both groups become obese, but the mice that have been exposed to these odorants become even more obese, so much more pronounced. So what we've done was basically to follow those mice and do exactly what you do in humans, right? Check what is their fat mass, do they have prediabetes, diabetes? What is their weight? How do they respond to this diet? So we found that they have increased weight gain, they have more fat mass, they actually have more pronounced diabetes, and we also look at their brains to see how the brains changed.
What exactly has changed?
So what we found very surprising is that the brain of the mice that have been exposed to these odors were very similar to the brain of mice that are obese. So basically the mice, even before themselves developing obesity, they had the same, if you want, signature in the brain of an obese mice. So we look at two important brain regions. One that encodes more like metabolism, so basically how you control your weight, your glycemia. And this we found exactly the same as normally we have in obesity. And same for like the circuits that control more like reward-related eating, right? Food preference. And this was very surprising because at the time when we look at those brain regions, the mice were still lean. So it means that just the odors of the fat food during development was sufficient to induce, let's say, like obese-like brain response.
So if this is true for bacon or artificial bacon flavors, that it can change the child's development, then it could also be true in the other direction. If I were somehow getting an artificial flavor and sprinkling my food with it, and it tasted like salad or really healthy stuff, that I could be rewiring or pre-wiring my child's brain for healthier outcomes.
So we don't think that it will work as easily because what we think is important is how the brain learn how to associate the calorie of the food with the odors, basically. So the first time a mice or a human faced a new food source, we are not able to associate the smell with the number of calories. So we need to consume it first, and then like our brain, our body know how to like associate it, right? So I think if we will try to trick the brain like this, then when we eat the real food, we'll quickly realize that this doesn't match. So I think in our model, this is what happened, right? The mice probably learned during development to associate the odors of bacon, so of something fatty, with healthy food. But when in adulthood, they have a real high-fat diet food that smell like fatty food but also have high calorie, they actually don't know how to respond to it because they've learned something differently during development.
So should we avoid things that smell good? Have I misunderstood your research, or what should people do?
No, we should absolutely not avoid things that smell good. Actually, it's the opposite, right? There are so many studies that show that this actually makes us happy, right? This actually activate pleasure circuit, reward circuit, bring memories, right? We should continue smelling things that smell good. I think what we should avoid to do is probably to have mismatch, right? To smell something that is artificial and does not necessarily recall the exact, for example, calories of the food, right? Probably go for more like natural food.
My very first thought when I saw the headline or the primary conclusion of your study was I imagined or wondered whether, if there's a pregnant woman out there who is working at a fast food restaurant, would this imply that she, even if she's eating a healthy diet, would potentially be putting her unborn child at risk of obesity in the future just by working there?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So actually, we got those first results when I was myself pregnant. You can imagine everything that was going on in my head. But actually, we show that at least in the mice, just smelling the odors is not sufficient. The mom has to eat it. So the odorants have to be coupled to some sort of calories from the food. So we did experiments that we just put the odorants in the cage, so the mice will smell it but not eat it. And this was not sufficient to induce obesity. So really, it has to be coupled. So of course, again, we don't know if the case in humans, but this will suggest, and I think it's reassuring, that just smelling the food won't be sufficient.
For the people who listen to the show, we always try and give them tips based on the research that we've heard about. I'm struggling here. Avoid the smell of pork, or to what extent can we compare the research that you did on these mice to human beings? I don't know what the answer to that question would be.
I guess the answer is that it's too early to say anything for humans, right? So, of course, it's mice. In our case, the mice were consuming this diet all the time, right? And this never happened in humans, right? You don't consume a unique food source your entire life. So we don't know if this happened in humans. We have to test it. We have planned to test it. What I can say for now is that our study doesn't change anything on the recommendation for pregnant women, right? Pregnant women should follow advice from their GP, gynecologist, should eat very healthy, avoid processed food. And I think this doesn't change any advice on this aspect.
And that was Sophie Steculorum talking to us there in Cologne, Germany at the Max Planck Institute for Metabolic Research on what is still a really fascinating...
Oh, that was wild.
Yeah.
Sitting there with that researcher together with Marin, who was the press person at the Max Planck Institute, helped us out with that. Just sitting there listening, it was like, wait, what? Just based on the smell, that will have an effect?
Well, and the
could lead to
the
obesity?
the logic makes absolute sense if you're establishing a clear connection inside of your brain that this smell equals this kind of calorie consumption. Your brain will lock onto that. That's relevant information for surviving in an uncertain world.
What do you guys have to say about it? Let us know at su@dw.com.
Science Unscripted.
DW, made for minds.